Okay, I'm going to be reviewing a plat extension request, and this will show basically that discussion with the city attorney that the elected officials cannot just arbitrarily, make decisions or decide. They have to have ordinances or findings of law, like a court case, to make their decisions. This I'm going to try this because I already made the video. It ended up being more than 10 minutes, which is the TikTok limit. So I'm going to try and 2x speed. You know what? I'm going to 1.5 speed this and see if you can still understand everything with the subtitles, and I will pop up their minutes as well. So let's see how it goes.
All right, business items. Case number 2308, TE time extension for Ewing Meadows. Jessica Hall.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. Jessica Reed. Ooh, I'm not used to my new name yet. My apologies. Jessica Hall, 751 West 4th Street, Kuna. So before you tonight is a request for preliminary plat time extension. It's pretty straightforward. This plat would not hit its expiration date until December. So they're making a preemptive request to go ahead and get that extended while they are finishing up their review process. It is currently under review. So if you have any questions, I can answer those.
Okay, question for Jessica.
Is this the first extension?
Yes, sir.
And what is it that they're reviewing?
So it would be reviewing the plans themselves for the first plat. Am I correct? The civils for the final plat are under review.
For the record, Doug Hanson, Planning and Zoning Staff, that is correct. They're in civil plan review with the Public Works Department currently.
So I guess the reason they said was because of the housing market isn't so good.
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean,
That's what they said.
bad wording for sure. They've been diligently working on getting it to the point for review. Other than that, I don't have answers for you for what their reasoning would be.
Does that matter, though? It's just time extension.
I mean, we've had times that's the first time either someone's brutally honest that they said it's because of the housing market, or other people are just,
So the issue is with higher interest rates, maybe even the financing that they were looking for fell through, or it might be like 10 or 15%, something crazy high for these construction loans. These pre-plats are pre-approved, and you have to build your roads and get all your, power lines and fulfill all the conditions before the plats are finalized with tax ID numbers, and then they can start selling them. But obviously these developers, generally speaking, are not buying these pieces of land just to sell empty lots. They want to buy homes because when you are a home buyer buying in these developments that have tract homes, as they're called, the buyers can more easily get financing if there's a home built on it. But if it's just empty land, good luck trying to find a bare land loan. Usually you have to wrap it in with some kind of construction loan. So that's kind of now with high interest rates, things are looking a little bit shaky on their part, and they may have a big loan to pay on the background. Who knows how their financing is set up.
honestly, I think the market, maybe they go back through the prosecuting. They're not ready because we're going to have another extension. I don't know. We do these all the time, and usually it's for materials or whatever. This is the first time I've ever seen one that says because of the housing market. And we all know the housing market isn't lively, but is that a reason to just keep kicking the can down the road? I don't know.
It's not a bad investment.
Well, this one's.
Mark, yes.
Mark Bivey, City Attorney. Councilmember Biggs, I know you brought this up before on these previously, and for me, it kind of rings that maybe something that needs to be looked at is just the ordinance under which we approve these extensions and maybe adding criteria, because I know when we've talked about this previously, it's fairly vague in ordinance. When I hear you bring this up, I think maybe this is something that deserves some attention as to what the criteria looks like, what the standards look like for approving this, as opposed, as the last we spoke about it, there wasn't really a list of criteria, so I think they just sling out anything, and that's what you're seeing. And so maybe it's on us as a city to say maybe we need to clean up our ordinance to say what we're actually looking for on approving or disapproving these. Because if we just all of a sudden start denying them, it's like, are we being arbitrary, or are we actually basing it on some criteria?
Well, there was that massive project in Meridian, and I understand development back out. I mean, that was millions of dollars. They just backed right out. Now Meridian's trying to figure out what to do. So let the city of Harbor. This isn't
Arbitrary. That's the key word.
It's something to consider.
Well, it also, I guess you're going to speak up at me when I say this, so get ready. I guess at some point in time when they start asking for these time extensions, if there was, I hate to use the word legitimate reason, but this is basically because nobody's buying houses, so we don't want to invest in put money. I guess why can't their EDUs why can't they fall off the list and go to the bottom of the list now instead of us holding those EDUs?
Councilmember Laraway, I know you're looking at me, so this is Mark Bybee.
Because I'm waiting for me to yell at you.
Are you hoping I chime in, or were you asking me a particular
I just want to
question?
ask you if what I'm saying is legal. I mean, 'cause the companies come in here, we want a time extension because we're not ready to invest, but yet they're tying up EDUs that we've promised them.
Yeah.
Maybe we should put them lower on the list and get the EDUs to other people. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and so if you were
Equivalent
if you were to deny
dwelling
it, you wouldn't be-
units,
and you're
EDUs.
quoting this, putting them lower on the list, but you're not putting them lower on the list. You're completely disapproving their application. Essentially, they're removed from the list entirely, and so the only way they get back in line is to restart the planning process. And so that's the effect of denying one of these, and so that's why I kind of get back to what I was saying to Councilmember Biggs. Do we need to take a look at what our criteria is for this? Because in any government decision making, you should not be arbitrary. Like, that's something that governments always need to avoid. There needs to be criteria and reasons for why they're making a decision. And if we need to improve the ordinance on this as to what it looks like and why we approve them or disapprove them, I think that's an approach or something that warrants a look, especially because this conversation keeps happening. It feels to me like this needs attention in code so that you guys have standards to apply, and so that the applicants have standards to look at when they're actually submitting their application. Because they're coming up with any reason because we haven't given them the reasons that even matter, right? Or the ones that won't help them.
Yeah, some sort of legal standing, I guess.
Well, the good news is that means they're not building as quickly.
That's true.
Because I think right now, the only standard is really, you have to request it by a certain time frame. And if you request it, then we don't have standard for how we review it once it's requested in the time frame. If they're late, you deny it because they're late.
I mean, there's a possibility also, so if we deny it, they'd have to start over, or they can just back out completely.
No, it would result in, if you deny a plat extension, the plat expires. It's no longer a plat, so they have to reapply and start over, is what would be the result.
And I think that it's something we should look at. We can extend this one, but it's probably something we should look at as a whole.
I agree.
So they ended up approving that extension, and the key word, remember, is arbitrary, and what the ordinances are. If the ordinances don't specify, what the criteria is for extension, like you see in this case, they can just have any reason. Bad market. I mean, that is a legit reason. Especially a lot of these developers are building off of leverage. It's not like they just have this huge amounts of cash just sitting there, and then plus the construction loans, and then people who are buying the homes. When you have much higher interest rates, it means people can afford to pay less. They're not able to pay as much for these homes at their whatever inflated prices they are. So that's just that's something to think about when you're considering like the city's role and really the power that elected officials generally have in the ability to deny applications. So there can be lawsuits. So why is the attorney getting involved? It's because Idaho code actually has specific statutes that specify the process in which a homeowner or somebody can appeal a government's decision. And if the government does not have laid out reasons within ordinances or specific criteria, they risk the chance of a judge basically overruling them, and then now you have all these legal fees, and guess the taxpayers end up paying it. So this is not as cut and dry. They can't necessarily just I think maybe that'll be a discussion with, because even if you talk, you see here, even with the elected officials, they have to be very careful, right? Because theoretically, even if they're being interviewed and by me, that if they end up denying a project in the future, a developer could use like the words within this podcast as evidence. Of course they would, right? If you are an attorney, you're going to use everything that you can. That is your job, to use against whatever city official, whatever elected official, to bolster your case. So it is you're really under the magnifying glass, and I think maybe if you bolster all of the ordinances, that's probably going to be another discussion. I will show one of the ordinances, or sorry, in the Idaho code, that appeal process, and obviously I'm not an attorney, but there is case law, which I don't know if I'm going to be going into that, but anyway, this was an interesting discussion to provide some insight in what's going on with the law, Idaho code, and their ability to deny requests. All right, have a good one.